Good morning. I bring you the spirit of Christmas. Christmas is my almost favorite holiday. Birthdays. Birthdays are number one. I mean, why not? To celebrate the uniqueness of everyone who is born. But Christmas, celebrating the spirit of Christmas is what I love. The way that people reach out across the miles to connect, or across emotional distances of years for the possibility of connection. To look for that possibility when we're surrounded by the kindness and the goodwill that seems to pop up in even the most unlikely people. To look for that possibility to let go of anger or bitterness or loneliness. At Christmas, people change. It's possible. I mean, look at Scrooge, look at the Grinch. It's all possible. My mother figured greatly at Christmas in my life. She liked Christmas. We didn't have extravagant gifts in our home, but she would save the Christmas cards from the year before to make the Christmas cards for this year. I still do that today. She played Christmas carols on our piano on Christmas morning, even before we opened our presents. Sometimes with Mom, we didn't even have breakfast yet. Joy to the World was pounded out on the piano. My mother was definitely a multifaceted person. Over the years, my relationship with her changed from one that was fraught with complications to what I called the love relationship. In later years, I compared our relationship to stringing pearls on a necklace. Each encounter with her was a gem that I came to treasure. But now to the Christmas part. On Christmas Eve, 2001, exactly 22 years to this day, my mother had a hemorrhagic stroke, and it completely changed her life. She was partially paralyzed, she was confined to a wheelchair, and she needed constant medical care. So my sisters and I brought her to New Jersey from her retirement home in North Carolina to a nursing home. In the beginning, when I visited her at the nursing home, it was just filled with confusion and anxiety. But gradually, very gradually, I came to know and appreciate and love this feisty, stubborn, sometimes outrageously humorous woman that was my mom. We visit her almost daily at her small nursing home, and it was like a home. I have that underlined in my notes because it was like a home. It was her new home. Now, her own anger and resentment at living with a stroke as a constant companion gradually changed. And she came to see the absurdity of trying to live her life as she had lived it before. She changed. She also came to see the humor in living in a group home. And she would tell me exaggerated stories of what happened with the staff or with someone who lived there, from "they're trying to kill me, Ethel," to the time she got caught in an elevator. And the director was just so upset that there's my little mom and I stuck in the elevator. And the director, I hear her voice going, "Are you all right, Gladys?" Thinking lawsuit in her head, probably. And my mother's laughing. She thought it was a riot. My mother became Mom. Isn't there a difference in those words that we use? Mother. Mother was very formal. But Mom was personal. And she shared childhood stories that I had never heard before and secrets about the family without embarrassment. Every Christmas for the 5 years that she was in the nursing home, my sisters and I went all out, over the top, you might say, in decorating her room. We hung lights around the window. We bought an animated Santa. We bought elf hats for her and us and the staff and anybody who came in. One year, my mother even wore a mistletoe beret. And she would turn her head when you came in the queue. A few days before Christmas, in the very early years when she was there, I was so tired from doctor and Medicare calls and worry and visits and teaching and trying to have a life that I just plunked down next to her bed and I put my head in her lap. And the miracle happened. Her hand went to the top of my head and stroked my hair down to my neck, back up to the top, and down again. And I just opened up even more to any and all possibilities to make her remaining lifetime a life. We doubled our efforts to go out, taking her in the wheelchair, pushing her, going to the park, going shopping. She loved going to JCPenney because she and my father did all their Christmas shopping there years earlier. We watched her favorite DVDs, Michael, Showboat, Miracle on 34th Street, anything with Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire. And we'd go down the hall greeting everyone. "Say hi, Mom." "They don't even hear us," she'd grumble. "But we hear us, Mom, and that's the difference. Put out your hand, say hello." Now, this routine was repeated by all three of her daughters when we came to visit, going down the hall, greeting everyone. We called it the mano a mano. Put out your hand. And soon the residents were reaching out their hand as we approached. Mom began reaching out her hand when anyone came by, visitor, the doctor, the nurse, family, even as time went by, the hospice aide. Mano a mano extended to hand holding, accompanied by a small pat, pat, pat from my mother's old tired hand. Hand holding in the activity room became hand kissing. Now here was a population mostly all bound to their wheelchairs by some or other condition. But the hands of fellow residents reached out to each other and then to lips or to cheeks. Every time I visited from then on, my mom would take my hand and go, "Let's go see how everybody is." That was the cue to go do the mano a mano thing. But gradually her speech faded to one-word answers, and her face aged, and her eyes lost that sparkle that I had grown to love. One day she told me that her father, long deceased, had come to visit her. And she added, looking very pleased, he was wearing a tuxedo too. She no longer went out shopping with me, but we did have a date to take a drive on Christmas Day to see all the lights in the neighborhood. On Christmas Eve day, we did the wheelchair mano a mano thing. My husband and I were there, my sister and her husband. We gave out gifts to the staff. Her desired gift that year was a pair of pink sneakers. We delivered. My husband and I and my sister and her husband, they got pink sneakers too. We did the rounds, we gave out presents, we celebrated complete with a pink sneaker song. It was a good visit. My mother died that Christmas Eve night. 5 years to the day that she had had her stroke. So when I tell people that Christmas is one of my favorite holidays, very often their face gets very sorrowful. "Oh, but your mother died on Christmas. How sad." It's not that sad for me. My mother loved Christmas. And she probably figured Christmas Eve was the best time to make her exit. She relished planning and having her own way. So to have a stroke on Christmas Eve and then to die on Christmas Eve, there's a certain irony in that when I think about it, because it was just like my mother. She never got to do the Christmas Day ride, but she had arranged her own tour. My twin and I went back to the nursing home that night after we got the call that my mother had died. And there were night lights along the hallway, so it was a very soft glow. And the staff had put all her Christmas lights on in her room, and Silent Night was playing on a CD player. She looked at peace. There were 2 chairs by her bed, so my twin and I sat down and we held her hands. When we heard the hearse pull up to take her to the funeral home, we looked at each other, and then we looked at my mother, and Eileen said, "Well, Mom, your ride is here." But I know that she took that final big sleigh ride, delighting in seeing all the Christmas lights all over the world. And every year, I take out a pink sneaker ornament that used to be on her tree, and I tell the story of Mom's last sleigh ride.